Thank you so much, Shegun Awosanya, for joining us on Sahara TV once again, please.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Mixed reactions has continued to trail the recent suspension of Abba Kyari from office as Deputy Commissioner of Police and head of the Intelligence Response Team. Mr. Kyari's suspension is said to be based on the recommendation of the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba. The police chief recommended the suspension as a temporary measure while the police investigate Mr. Kyari's relationship with popular fraudster Rahman Abbas, popularly called Hush Puppy. The highly decorated officer was indicted by a U.S. court as a conspirator in a $1.1 million fraudulent deal against the Qatari businessman. Mr. Kyari has continued to deny any wrongdoing. Sega, from your perspective, what's your reaction to this indictment of Nigeria's top police cop?
As you know, over the years, I always say that I hardly react to things, but I always prefer to respond. And the response I would give to this is that as Nigerians, we always pray to have leaders of thought, leaders within security institutions, leaders across board to represent Nigeria in a better light, regardless of where they may be, whether in the country or outside the country. You also know historically that Nigerians or Nigerian police officers have always excelled outside the country when they go for courses or when they go on, to represent Nigeria anytime they are out of the country. And this is one of the, despite the fact that sometimes, or most times, the international records or the international rating of Nigerian police has always been very bad. We are always the worst, if not the second to the worst. And we always ask the question, why is it that Nigerian police officers go outside the country, the shore of the country, to do us proud, while they return to Nigeria to continue in impunity? And one of the issues that we have, apart from the institutional gaps and institutional problems and years of decadence that we've had within the police structure or within the administration of the police structure, based on statutory or extant laws that created the police itself, the Police Act of 1943, which has thankfully, based on our advocacy and facilitation, been repealed now with a new document, which is in operation as we speak. That's the Police Act 2020. Now, we find that there's always been, remember that the NSAS Reform Police NG advocacy, we started some years back, around 2016, 2017, at the advocacy proper, not the research, over a decade ago now, focuses on the cancerous nodes within the system. And even as at that time, most of the crimes that were attributed to the special anti-robbery squad were mostly the acts or the actions of the IDP intelligence response team. Remember also that the IDP intelligence response team, head by Kyari then, normally or used to share office with the SARS in Ikeja in Lagos at that time. So every single crime that they commit were deemed to have been SARS crimes. So of course, what I'm saying is evidenced by the various or numerous or the litany of petitions that are scattered across Nigeria at the Judicial Panel of Inquiry. At least that to bear me witness. And also petitions that I'm also privy to, numbering 10 to 20, on this particular unit across Nigeria, bordering on extortion, bordering on indiscriminate arrest, bordering on illegal arrest for that matter, torture, abductions, and extortion of huge sums. The IRT don't actually ask for small funds. They ask for hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for release of anybody. And now when you look at the allegations that we have here, of course, we know Nigeria is a sovereign nation. No FBI cannot walk into a country and then demand to arrest somebody, especially a deputy commissioner of police of a country and then want to whisk him away like a common criminal. He has the right to defend himself. And then there are protocols to extradition. So if you want to extradite someone, there are protocols in which, that must be followed, which follows the judicial inquiry into the matter to actually determine if the wrong being done was actually committed, or if the crime can actually be prosecuted on Nigerian soil, because he's a Nigerian and he's also serving in Nigerian institution. But of course, while that investigation is going on, there's no how Kyari will remain in office. But of course, when you look at the lavish lifestyle, when you look at the way he lives his life, the way he runs his operation, the way he boasts about funding his own operation, the way he boasts about running, paying for all the things that he does, the way he's conducting his actions and all, it is far from professional. It is not in any standard operation procedure of police. But over the years, he has enjoyed being pampered. He has enjoyed being allowed to do as he pleases. He has enjoyed running his own show the way he likes. He has enjoyed a lot of impunity under different Inspector General of Police. You will recall that it was after our petition and my Arise TV and also Sahara TV interview that the IG finally restricted the activities of the IRT to Abuja alone before they operate through their satellite offices across Nigeria, until the crimes against humanity, until the impunity and the high-handedness towards their prosecution of events and cases. Of course, you have a lot of allegations of them stealing and robbing from people that they're investigating. We have allegations of people being murdered in detention so that they can acquire and repossess their properties and the rest. All those things are there. And the system cannot say they don't know about this. But because of
now, let me quickly, come in there. Based on your recent, your recent analysis, the history of Nigeria's police shows a history of the kind of impunity in which a highly decorated police officer will take a bribe from a fugitive criminal and arrest another in exchange operational notes. The Nigerian police have been known to kill Nigerian citizens, frame innocent Nigerians for a fee, to keep them in jail, harass them, extort them, and no Nigerian alive today believes that Nigerian police is their friend or has their back. Now, some of the crisis which the Nigerian nation has suffered is not only professional. What are the systemic issues, and why hasn't there been a serious reform despite agitations, despite calls for reforms?
Thank you very much for your question. I want to believe that where we in Nigeria were used to having things done swiftly. We're used to stop gaps. We're used to presidential orders. We're used to all the things that mirrors military interregnum, that mirrors activities that happens at the snap of a finger under a dictator. That's why we believe that police reform is a switch, something that we'll get an order and it start happening immediately. You see, when we have a systemic damage running through decades, 9 decades for that matter, it is not something that can be done by fiat. It's something that has to go through a process. And that process starts with the legislative process, which has actually passed bills that have been assented to by the president, which has now brought about the Police Act of 2020. Now, it did not stop there. The law itself does not solve problems per se until there is a full implementation, there is full monitoring of the implementation and evaluation of the outcome of those things, of those laws. And also the provisions of that law also must also be subject to evaluation to the point where it begins to mirror society in the here and now. Certain elements and things that we know that are still in existence that have not been curbed, we cannot begin to ask questions based on this is the provision of the law and this is what is happening. And then if this is not congruent with the provision of the law, why is it happening? It is until these challenges comes up that we can now begin to engage the culture of impunity to the point where the norm, or to the point where what has been designed with the new law will begin to manifest in society. So it takes a lot of iterations, it takes a lot of challenges, it takes a lot of engagement, it takes a lot of, accountability, and which is the right of citizens anyway to carry out. We are supposed to hold our leaders to account. We are supposed to be have orientation. Right now, since the government is not doing it, the national orientation agencies are moribund. We need to, organizations across board within the civil society need to do the needful and engage the people, educate them on the provisions of law so that we can begin to, implement the law to the fullest and hold the authorities to account. It is until this is done that every citizen in the country understands their right under the new provisions and are able to prosecute that and implement that and engage police officers on that matter. That is when you begin to see everything change in the society as a whole. But for now, the document is still the document as a whole. People don't know their rights. They don't know the provisions of law. So the authorities also will be pushing things. Remember, when you train your staff, when you send them for trainings and they return, everybody returns to their daily activities as if nothing has happened. So until the authorities within the system or people within the system start making use of what they learned or start implementing, or if there's a force or engagement that forces them to do the new thing. So it is until the new takes over that the old fizzles away. So I think the law was passed last year. We're yet to give people the proper orientation on the law. We're yet to engage the system. For example, look at what happened when the president was about to pick a new IG. He was fully engaged and taken to account, or held to account, to the provisions of law that you cannot do this, you cannot do, and it made it very difficult for them to do what they usually do. And with this, with the law being in place, and with the monitoring of the civil society, certain things will not go unaccounted for. Look at what has happened with Kyari. Under normal circumstances, if not for monitoring, if not for active citizenry, this will have been swept under the carpet. But because people were monitoring, because I know the impact of civil society on what has happened, we're holding on to the police, telling them, don't bring the whole system down because of one individual. We're holding them to account, telling them, don't allow, the crimes or the alleged crimes of this individual, which, of course, the FBI will not come out on any matter until they have finished their investigation. And remember, what we have on ground is just what has been declassified. There are more files yet to be opened. So with that, we will learn from this again to be able to also heal our own investigation process. If the leader of the intelligence response team cannot understand basic operational procedure, and he has reduced himself to be taking orders from a common self-confessed fraudster, then he begins to tell you the level of intelligence that we have with the police system. And if you want to pose the question, will Kyari allow somebody he's investigating who has confessed to have taken money from illicit funds, will allow them walk away by merely saying, I collected only 300,000 naira to help him buy clothes? He wouldn't take that as an excuse. He will hang that person, he will torture that person until the person confesses to even crimes that he has not committed. So it's not tenable. And of course, it was even premature. He didn't even know how much he knew about him before he came out with that excuse. So he has already, and of course, I read on Sahara Reporters also that he said that the investigation is laughable. Then he also said things like, if he goes down, he's going to bring other people down or something like that. That is admittance of wrong already. In fact, such an individual need not be in the system. These are the square pegs and round holes that we're talking about.
Now,
but I'm glad.
Still on the reform, I know you want to go on. The police has actually set up an investigative panel, and considering the history of investigative panels in this country, it's often been seen to be a tactic for buying time and to sweep the matter under the carpet. For example, we all remember the panel set up to investigate the EFCC boss, Ibrahim Mago, in 2020. No report. The case was closed. A panel was also set up for a forensic examination of financial transaction in NDCC. No report. Case closed, Busto. And now a panel has now been set up to investigate the financial, indictment of the deputy commissioner of police. That's Abba Kyari himself. Will there be a report? Will this matter also go the same way or toe the same line that is how it will be? What's what's your take on that?
The question we need to ask ourselves: what role did we play as citizens, in holding that, though any panel whatsoever, accountable on their terms of reference? So you see, no eagle flies with one wing. No government does it all. The citizenry must, the public must hold them to account, demand the result of their activities. This is how you see, people don't do what you expect. They do what you inspect. If they know they will be held accountable by Nigerians, they are going to come out with their report and say, or at least say, we have done our job. We have submitted our report. It is left for government to do the needful. Recall that I participated in the National Security Summit in this country, held at the NIA. We submitted reports of that particular summit. It was highly attended. Every single representative of the stakeholders were there from all across our security institutions, and also ministers of repute were there. And the result, the outcome of that particular summit, you saw when the Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, presented that report to Mr. President. That is how things are done. If you really show the real political will behind the activities or behind your activities. For example, now we have the Judicial Panel of Inquiry set up across Nigeria. You can see the impact of Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry already. So it is not paying lip service to certain things. You don't have to be in government to actually fix things. The little things that you can do from where you stand, you can begin to implement that to be able to bring a holistic change within the polity. So we all have a role to play. We need to hold panels responsible for whatever it is that they are doing. So they are not there for fun. Now, like, for example, the panel set up by the police to investigate Abba Kyari, for instance, they know that the whole world is watching them. We're already investigating to know who constituted that panel. Who is the AIG there? Who are the two DIGs there? Who is the CSP that is the secretary of the panel? And what is the outcome of the investigation? It is important to all of us because the police institution is the closest institution to the people. And if they are corrupt, they have lost legitimacy. They can't arrest anybody if they themselves are thieves. So that's the implication.
Now, given how morally rotten the institution of the police is in Nigeria and the rampant crab mentality in its rank, the consequences that Kyari has faced for most of his unconventional publicity seeking as the show telling policing, and also his open cavorting with business suspicious personages, as a matter of fact. We've had instances where he has this meteoric climb up the promotional ladder. Doesn't it show that the police establishment is in on what it does? And do you see more consequences for those in the top hierarchy?
Well, what I would say is this: we must never use a single brush to paint over an entire institution. There are super cops within the system who will not tell the public that they are super cops.
True.
Of course, I can speak and I can vouch for a few. I have worked across Nigeria with most of these formations, and I know that most of them, they are uncelebrated. There are lots of CSPs, around who are wonderful, and most of them are even female. They are wonderful people. They are doing their job. They are not looking for attention. They are not looking for. They are just contributing their own little quota to nation building. So when they mention DCP Tunji Disu, people will celebrate because we have seen his impact. This is a man who has headed, police formations before. He has headed special anti-robbery squads before across, whether you're talking about Akure, whether you're talking about Lagos, whether you're talking about RLS. He has done stuff across board. And everywhere he goes, that professionalism, that standard, that uniqueness, that trust is there. It follows him everywhere. Which is why people are celebrating now that meritocracy is beginning to gain ground with the police. And if you look at the way the police, prosecuted this matter, there were no excuses. They didn't come out to say it's a lie, it's true. You know what they used to do? What used to characterize the police of then? Because of the monitoring. You see, I keep saying this, that it is not the police that keeps the criminals away. It is the society that determines their value and say enough is enough, not in my backyard. if they know that the people are watching them, they will do the needful. So we cannot allow them or ignore our responsibilities and leave it up to politicians to decide for us. Going forward, it will be difficult for police to run crazy. I am not saying police have totally been healed. I'm neither saying that they are still not committing crime, but the fact that they know already that there's no crime they will commit that they will not be caught because people are watching. Nigerians are watching.
Finally, Sega, talking about this wide-ranging police reforms, and many analysts have also called for an internal review mechanisms that will make the life of corrupt personnel, difficult. Some have even called for a serious and powerful internal review boards to ensure the professionalism and the high conduct of police affairs in Nigeria. I'd like to get your view on this. Part of the reforms that people are calling for is the need to place the operations of the police in the hands, in the office of an independent attorney general and not in the presidency. What's your view on this?
Well, you see, the Police Act speaks for itself. And there are three fundamentals. The first one is the fact that police, henceforth, are going to operate with accountability and transparency. Secondly, that police, as an organization, will respect human rights according to all the treaties and charters that Nigeria is signatory to. And thirdly, they must be able to work hand in hand with civil society to ensure transparency as well. Because police institutions need to learn to employ their witnesses. They are not equipped to run, they were not designed and equipped to police this kind of population. 200 million people. How many are they? Less than 500,000. So with that, they need collaboration. And to collaborate, they need trust. They need to earn trust. Of course, there are internal mechanisms. We are dealing with other ranks, like with all our interventions over the years. We know you've heard about orderly room trials. So like people like Kyari Kyari will not be subjected to orderly room trial because he's a senior officer. And senior officers are, remember, the body that is responsible for for discipline, for recruitment, and also for promotion of police is the Police Service Commission.
Yeah.
So the advocacy thrust here should be that the Police Service Commission must never be headed by a retired police officer. Because you cannot use the same mindset that created the problem to solve the problem. It must be independent body. If you go abroad, go to UK and the rest, the head of their police officer, a police unit institution, they are not police officers. They are members of the civil society. They are reputable and trusted members of civil society. You cannot even put policing per se under the Attorney General precisely. Because again, the attorney is just like making government a judge in their own case. Of course, we have that particular problem with the Sheriff and Civil Process Act of within our constitution. So, and we know that within that Sheriff and Civil Process Act, there is a part there that says that if you have an issue with an institution, of course, if you need to garnish the account of a security institution or any institution of state for that matter, you need the consent of the Attorney General. Is the Attorney General going to rule against his own government, his own administration? He's not. Which explains why a lot of people have judgments that they cannot enforce all over the place. And this constitutes 14%, if not more, of the petitions across judicial panel of inquiries in Nigeria. So the issue here, like I said, the advocacy trust here is to ensure that the Police Service Commission is thoroughly independent and not headed by a retired police officer. That is what you should be focused on. That guarantees the independence of that particular body.
Finally, this is actually the final question because we are actually running out of time. Given the huge collapse of our justice system and the disrespect for the rule of law and the depth of corruption across board, what would you have preferred that the DCP, Kyari, not just be suspended, but should be extradited? Should he?
Well, like I said, extradition, giving our own take as people within civil society, monitoring the process and observing the whole thing. Of course, he's supposed to be extradited. But again, it won't be based on our words. Remember, we must not encourage jungle justice or media trial. He has the right to defend himself based on the evidence that is presented before the panel or the committee or the judicial system that is going to follow the. So if they do all those things and all, and it's found wanting, you will automatically be extradited. And if that is done, the EFCC will now be expected, because this is an oversight on their side anyway. They ought to have known all these things before. Because we have a problem in this African country, where African continent, where we always expect foreigners to see into our country to identify issues that we already know were there. So EFCC is supposed to know this. EFCC is not constituted to run after the political enemies of the president. They are actually meant to ensure that they do what they are created to do. And they ought to have flagged this earlier on. Don't they see his lifestyle? Don't they see his don't they see his operations? Why are they not asking questions or even submitting some petitions to the Police Service Commission to look into? Remember that, like I said, if you are going to try an army officer for anything, they have their own internal mechanisms, court-martial system. We have the judicial, we have the court-martial system in the military. In the police, we have the orderly room trials and the special investigation panels, SIPs, constituted by the Police Service Commission to look into disciplinary actions or so. So there are internal mechanisms. So even if you say EFCC cannot jump into the police system to arrest police officers for certain things, they can make recommendations to the Police Service Commission on that basis. So how Kyari went under the radar, they have a lot of answers or questions to answer from Nigerian public.
Sega Awosanya, thank you so much for your insightful analysis and perspective.
Thank you very much.